Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets. We are here. It is Monday, November the 13th, and we are ready to get going here as we have all kinds of things to talk to you about. Spencer the Guru is with me. I am Jim Derry, and we remind you that Caesar Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.nola.com, and we politely ask you to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. What is going on, Spence?
Hey, Jim. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. We got a lot of people in the house. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And yeah, we're here to break this thing down. It was ugly yesterday, but it's time to, now that our heads have cleared, it's time to get down to business and figure out what the hell is wrong with this team.
No doubt about it. That is going to be our main topic today. Good grief. I don't want to sound like Charlie Brown, but that's exactly what I feel like. I feel like someone's yanking the ball from me. Where's Lucy? Jayden Daniels for Heisman. Well, come on. They're not going to give it to the guy who deserves it, but we're going to talk about it anyway. That's coming up in the second segment, along with Tulane. We don't know what the heck is going on with Tulane. They keep playing cat and mouse. They've been getting away with it for so long, but at some point that is going to bite them in the butt. We're going to talk about Tulane. We're going to a little bit about the Pelicans, and then also Monday Night Football. Broncos at Bills tonight. What do we think? We're going to give our best predictions as we go along. But first, got to talk about the Saints. It is only fitting this team enters the bye week with a loss, and now there are questions, injury questions. Of course, I know many people are probably shocked to hear that Michael Thomas is hurt again. Very good chance he could go on injured reserve along with Marshawn Lattimore. That is all to be determined. Derek Carr, it looks like his shoulder is okay, but he is in concussion protocol. They'll be okay to go in 2 weeks. We'll worry about that later on. Man, it's just crazy times for these Saints. Just as you think things are getting better, Spencer, of course, they make a turn for the worse.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this one coming. I picked the Vikings to win. I think my final score pick was 27-23, ended up 27-19. So, yeah, the Saints just – I mean, they got a little something going in the second half, but for once again, it's the fourth week in a row they really sucked in the first half, especially on defense. And you can't be having that when you claim to have an upper-tier defense. And fact is, the past month, they have been anything but that. If anything, the offense has been better. But this week, the whole thing just came crashing down. And scary thing is, I mean, that they should be over 500 with the freaking schedule they've had. I believe they'd only played 3 teams with winning records, and one of them is Minnesota, who's done it with the freaking quarterback they just acquired less than 2 weeks ago. No Justin Jefferson, yet they just keep finding ways to win because they're well coached. And I know we'll get to this, Jim, but to me, the Saints coaching, and we say it almost every week, is dreadful.
Well, it's the same old song and dance. You get a couple good weeks, and then you get a dud. And they cannot put any consistency together whatsoever. Dennis Allen even said as much because we can't find any consistency. Tyrann Mathieu used the term "same old song and dance." So I mean, you're getting even they're expecting it. So I mean, if you coaches are expecting it, that's saying something. They got to get something going. Got to figure something out. And look, I thought the telling sign was on offense yesterday. We're going to talk about the defense in a little bit because the defense certainly had their own problems. But last real play of the game. I'm not talking about the Hail Mary. I'm talking about the pass where Jameis threw an interception. This told me everything I needed to know about Pete Carmichael in a nutshell. There's 148 left on the clock. You're at the Minnesota 46-yard line, which means you got plenty of time to score a touchdown. You don't score, you don't win. You got to score a touchdown, you got to get a 2-point conversion. So what does this team do? What it's been doing all year long when it doesn't have to, it's throwing deep when the other team expects you to throw deep when you don't have to. Not only did they throw deep, Spencer, but they had 3 receivers within about a 4 to 5 yard radius of one another, basically all running the same route. I mean, if you want to run a Hail Mary with 1 minute and 48 seconds to go, you go ahead, but it's probably not going to work. It didn't work on the last play. This offensive coordinator is one of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's not good. And I mean, Jameis, I know people are going to blast him for those picks at the end. And I mean, granted, his decision making is not the best. He's a backup quarterback for a reason. But the offensive line did him no favors. Same goes for Derek Carr. Believe me, I'm no fan of Derek Carr. I know Jim defends Derek Carr more than I do. But, I mean, the bottom line is Carr had no time, and they've got to do a better job at getting those guys rolled out and give them a little more field to work with. And the fact is, though, Carmichael's playbook is not where it needs to be. It's a broken playbook, as we like to joke about the Sean Payton leftovers, but it's the truth. I mean, they don't have any answers, no consistent answers. They have their little moments where they look good and can put up some points, but over the long haul, it's like you said, same old song and dance, and until they fix it, they're not going anywhere. At best, be a one and done playoff team.
We got some comments. If you want to leave your comment in the comment stream, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to do so. We'll be happy to show it on the screen. Someone with the last name Urquhart says, "Hey guys, he's looking for his Saints optimism." I mean, I guess we could use some at this point. In the grand scheme of things, they're 5-5, still leading the division. Probably going to win the division. We'll get to that in a little bit. I don't know. In a big game coming up against Atlanta, Spencer thinks it's a little bit more important than I do. I don't think it's not important. I think one of us thinks it'll tell us whether the Saints really will win the division. We'll talk about it in a minute. Barry says, tale of two halves for the Saints defense. Yeah, they gave up 297 yards in the first. 297 yards to a quarterback that has now two wins as a starting quarterback in the NFL in his 8-year career. Still, all they have to do is beat teams wind up with a 9-8 record. Getting tighter. That margin for error is most certainly getting smaller. Nick Marsh says the receivers look they were having a picnic. Ryan, are we taking dynasty questions? I tell you what, for you, Ryan, we will, but I tell you what, I'm going to come back to that. I didn't read that correct. We will come back. Before I move on to LSU, I will come on to your dynasty question, I promise you. But the fantasy show is on Monday, but we will take
tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow we'll have open forum live Q&A. So, Ryan, if you have more, feel free to tune back in tomorrow.
We will answer your question before we move on to LSU, Ryan, I promise. Look, I want to go back to this comment right here from Barry with the defense. I mean, people can blast Derek Carr, and that's all I hear. Derek Carr sucks. Jameis sucks. This sucks. And even me, I'm starting out talking about Pete Carmichael. Pete Carmichael is really bad. Okay. I mean, really bad. But look, I'm tired of blasting the offense. I'm tired of blaming everything on quarterbacks and not using Taysom Hill, which is certainly a big part of the problem. But what is going on with this defense? How do you allow 297 yards to Josh Dobbs? I don't care. Josh Dobbs looked good. Yeah, he looked good, but the Saints made him look good. What is going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and they just keep making the same mistakes, and that's where I criticize Dennis Allen. I mean, he's like, you keep beating your head against the wall. He says the same things every week in the press conference. Oh, we've got to get better.
He does.
Got to be more consistent. We got to do this. Talk is cheap, man. I mean, you got to start having results, and the fact is they're not having the results they need for the amount of talent they have on this roster. And I know Gail Benson's her history as owner has been loyalty and patience, but in this NFL, you can't be loyal to a fault, or else you're not going to win football games. Unless you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, like, you got to be willing to make changes. And so I don't think they'll do it in the season. But if they miss the playoffs, then I think there's a chance I always said in pre-production, they'll probably keep DA no matter what. But if this team misses the playoffs with all in front of him with this easy schedule, he deserves to get fired.
DA. That's what we're talking about today. DA, never going to be a good head coach. Look, I mean, I don't blame it all on Dennis Allen. I'm still, I don't know what I'm holding out for. I don't know what kind of hope I'm holding out for. Because look, when you can't put together a solid string, they have yet to play. We're 10 games in now. 10 games in. And I guess what's frustrating, normally when you got a 5-5 team, because look, there are 19 teams in the NFL right now. 19 out of 32 either have 5 wins or fewer. And you think about it, I woke up this morning listening to New York talk shows. I have no interest in whatsoever in New York teams, but I wanted to see how those radio shows were reacting to the Jets and the Giants. And it's kind of what you would imagine. So, I mean, I thought about it. It was kind of made me chuckle a little bit. I needed to chuckle on this Monday morning. And I'm thinking, it could be a whole lot worse. Could be a fan of the New York Giants and the New York Jets. You could be a fan of the Bears. You could be a fan of the Panthers. You could be a fan of, the Cardinals, the Patriots, really the Colts and all grand. There are a ton of teams you could be a fan of right now where it would be way worse than being a Saints fan. But what's so frustrating is the talent on this team. They just don't play the level of talent. It's kind of like if they play a crappy team, they can play crappy. If they play a good team, they play a little bit better and find a way to stay in the game. It's like, man, just play good they haven't had 10 games. They haven't had one game all year long where they played well on offense and well on defense.
I know that's the issue with this team. They don't play complimentary football. They remind me a lot of the Chargers. Team that
you're right.
On paper,
comparison.
Yeah, they're talented. They should be winning more games, but they don't play together, and they always seem to lose the close ones. And when you play like that, you're not going to win many games. Look at the Vikings. Yeah, they're on paper going into this. They were the underdog, and it screamed wrong team favored to me though, because of the way the Vikings have shown just a consistent history of closing out games, and they showed yet again that they're able to get it done. And
Vikings had a third-string quarterback, didn't have their top receiver playing. Alexander Madison has been a bust, hasn't done a darn thing. Their offensive line has been banged up. They have other injuries. They have no pass rush, but yesterday they did for some unknown reason. They have one pass rusher.
They have a pass rush because they
don't have a pass rush. They have one pass rusher. They have one pass rusher. Just because they blitz doesn't mean they have a pass rush.
Well, yeah, their overall defense isn't very good because of that. And the Saints, though, I mean, if Carmichael was a smarter OC, he could have been able to beat the blitz, but he just,
Oh, yeah, I don't deny that. Charles has been watching the NFL for 60 years. Never saw a player line up as far offside as Shaheed.
A whole yard offside.
Look, penalties are most certainly a problem with this team, among other things. I mean, we're going on and finding things. And look, they're 5-5. Imagine if they were 3-7. If they were 3-7, no one would be watching the show because they don't care. I guess people still care, but I think they're teetering on not caring anymore. If this team can't get it together soon, I think it's gonna be like the old days. I know you don't remember the old days, Spencer. You're not old enough, but I do. And let me tell you, back when I was a kid, and until I was well into my teens, the Saints were never on TV at home. Why? Because that blackout rule, by the way, still exists. If you don't have a sellout, the game's not on TV. And in the old days, the Saints would never sell out. The Saints were never. I mean, it was rare. You might get a Monday night game and people would, at the last minute, like the final 2,500 tickets would be bought by Shoetown. I mean, I know people as old as me know what I'm talking about. And it was a big deal. It was Monday night's game because once every 4 or 5 years, the Saints would be on Monday night and it would be on TV and it'd be a big deal. But if they don't start winning soon, I got a feeling this dome's going to go back to not being sold out, and we'll see how the Bensons feel then when they're not getting sellouts.
Ooh, that's a Derry downer we all know and love.
Just telling you, man.
In that case, then they'll be forced to make wholesale changes at that point. It is just do something to get some excitement going. And that's why I've been banging this drum, I feel like, since this offseason, that they should have been making more changes. Because, I mean, you have to think ahead in this business. You want to stay ahead of the curve so it doesn't come down to this. You want to keep your roster young. And if it's not, unless you have an elite roster where you have a Super Bowl window, don't be afraid to make roster turnover. I mean, like Michael Thomas, they should have moved on from him. It was ridiculous to bring him back. I mean, then he had the arrest and now he's hurt again. I mean, it's just perfect example of being loyal to a fault. They should not have brought him back.
And why would you be loyal? You go back in time. Let's go back in time about 10 weeks. And there were fans out there, plenty of fans who thought that, well, Michael Thomas is back now. He's a solid number 2. I'm like, if he has to be a number 2 receiver on this team, they're in a whole lot of trouble because he's that. Look, and he looked great for 1 or 2 games, and then he disappeared back into oblivion. And I'm not just talking about, he wasn't there this game and he got hurt early on. I mean, really, let's be honest. Where has he been? I mean, what has he contributed to this team? Not a whole lot. He's got 400 and something yards, which is actually more than I thought he would have, a little more than midway through the season. But really, he's not a number 2 receiver anymore. And I agree wholeheartedly. They should have moved on from him All he was doing was causing distractions. And now you think that they have to move on from him now.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, it's just I think it's his last year of his contract, so yeah, I would think they'll. I mean, and I mean Lattimore. I mean, Lattimore's not really because of performance with him. It's more just he's almost 30 now, and it's just year after year he's injured. So I mean, they've got
Maybe
a
it's time to move on from him too.
good pair of young corners. It's looking like with Alontae Taylor and Paulson and Debo. So I mean, it's not the off season yet, but it's off season. They're gonna have to really look themselves in the mirror and might have to make some cuts they don't want to have to make, because if not, you're just going to stay stuck in this spinning your wheels purgatory, whatever you want to call it.
Well, before we move on, we'll tell you, in case you hadn't heard the news from earlier today, just about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, we got the news that, let's see, I want to make sure I get who's reporting in here. Matthew Paris, our new Saints beat writer, is reporting that Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore suffered, quote, fairly significant injuries in Sunday's loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Coach Dennis Allen said on Monday's press conference call with the local media here. He said he did not anticipate, this is telling, he did not anticipate the injuries to Thomas, who has a knee injury, and Lattimore an ankle injury, to be season ending. But the fact that he's saying that, if you don't anticipate they're going to be season ending, that means you're anticipating it's going to be a while. He declined to say whether they would go in injured reserve, which obviously causes them to miss at least 4 games. So I think you can pretty much bet that both of these guys are going to be on injured reserve and miss the next 4 weeks. I would be shocked if Michael Thomas doesn't go on injured reserve and just doesn't disappear for the. I mean, I hate to put it any other way, but doesn't disappear. Derek Carr, meanwhile, is in a concussion protocol and said, quote, Carr's shoulder is, quote, fine. So there's your update, injury update on Dennis Allen, Michael Thomas, and Marshawn Lattimore. Okay, we are going to come back and we're going to end the show talking about the Saints for a couple more minutes. Sergeant King says the players are a reflection on their leaders, coaches. There's no question about that. Let's answer before we move on. I promised we'd answer Ryan's question. Would you trade Higgins, Ramondre for Adele? And well, Higgins is hurt. I'm not sure why anyone would want Higgins.
Well, it's dynasty, if they're looking long term.
Okay, well, you can answer that question.
Okay, yeah, I would probably do this, especially if you feel like your team's in a win now position, because Tyreek Hill's a true difference maker. I mean, you probably Higgins or Ramondre, you'd think they all just like. I mean, Ramondre is probably an RB2. The other two more like flex plays. So I'd probably go ahead and do this. If you're a team though that's like it's kind of mid, just trying to build your depth. Like Tank Dell's a good piece to have for the future. But if you feel like your window is now, I'd take that.
All right, we're going to come back to this slide here as we'll touch on Saints Falcons before we go off the air, and I want to ask you what you think about Saints odds before we go off the air. They have changed quite significantly, especially the Super Bowl numbers. Those have changed, and we'll get back to that. Oh, before we move on, here we go. Bookies rule. It's all rigged. Stop it. Good Lord. Stop it. For the love.
Yep, Vegas runs it all. Yep, it's just
for the love of all that's holy. There are actually people out there that believe that. There really are. There are people that wake up in the morning thinking that everything is rigged. I mean, they could probably run over a nail on the way to the grocery store and think it was rigged. Someone threw it out there, so they roll over it. There are people like that. There really are.
Well, hopefully they find some peace, because that doesn't sound like a very
good way to live. You ain't kidding. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Speaking of things that are rigged, the Heisman race. I think it's rigged. That is one thing that I do think is rigged. I mean, what else does Jayden Daniels have to do to win the Heisman yet? He's at plus 325. At least he moved in a second, and I think he's almost. We went from saying, I don't know, hopefully he'll make it to New York. So I think he's at least guaranteed himself a spot in New York now, Spencer. But, Oregon still has to play Washington, so it's probably the winner of Knicks. Well, I'm saying they have to play each other. They would play each other again in the Pac-12 championship game. Wouldn't you think it's most likely, because that's how the media is, they're going to vote for the Knicks-Penix winner?
I mean, most likely, yeah. I mean, that's what the books are saying. I mean, Oregon's be the early favorite there, and so Knicks is the Heisman favorite. But to me, that's so silly.
Look at this number at the bottom of the screen. LSU stats. I mean, What I mean, when I even typed it out, and I had to laugh as I was typing that in. 701 yards. I mean, 701 yards. Who does that?
I know, and it's just like it doesn't matter to what a lot of these voters because they just go off wins and losses. But when you look at the raw numbers, which I just dropped an article on bet.nula.com going over to Penix, Nix, Jayden, just breaking down the raw numbers, and yeah, all their passing numbers very close, but neither Nix or Penix have anywhere close to the amount of rushing. Penix actually has negative rushing yards on the season because sacks count in college, for a lot. Penix is like negative 20 rushing yards. And then here we go, Jayden Daniels, almost 1,000. Like when you just the raw numbers, it's not even close.
Well, and the funny thing about that number down there, that's 701. I mean, if you didn't see the game or you weren't paying enough attention to what they were talking about during the game, it's not just 701. Of that 701, Jayden Daniels accounted for over 600 of himself. And look at the evenness. 372 yards passing, 329 yards rushing. And he had over 160 yards rushing?
Yeah, I think he had over 200 rushing.
Over 200.
I think it was like rushing. 400 passing, 200 rushing.
Insane. I mean, so to me, look, I know people cringe when they hear this. Some people do. Some people say, yeah, and root me on when I say it. But I mean, I'm being dead serious. I'm not saying this to be funny or try to evoke an emotion or whatever. I truly believe Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow at LSU are what and what. I'm not saying that Jayden Daniels would be as good as Joe Burrow in the pros, but I think he could be. I think he has a chance to be. And I think he needs to bulk up a little bit. I agree with the people who talk about he needs to put a little bit more muscle on to be able to take the hits. But man, I don't understand. Jeff, Nix is worthy. Worthy of what? He's not even the best quarterback in his own conference. He's really not. I don't understand. And that's another thing. I don't understand how Nix can be the favorite when I think Penix is certainly better than Nix. That's
Nix,
just
I mean, then you look at the numbers, Nix actually has slightly better numbers. They're very close, but I thought Penix was a little better than he was lately, though. He got off to a really hot start, but lately Penix has not been as impressive as I thought he would be.
All right, I'm going to briefly go back to the Saints slide because of this one comment. And this is, I was waiting for some. Let me put it politely. I don't want anyone to
CJ.
I don't want to be I don't want to be too ugly here when I say numbskull. How about that? I was waiting for some numbskull to say this. Hey CJ, we're glad you're back, but I don't remember. I'm sure I did tell you to come back in November. You think it's safe to say what team are you talking about when you say quarterback controversy? If you're talking about the Saints, you're out of your box. There is zero, and I mean zero, quarterback controversy. There will be no – Derek Carr is the quarterback of this Saints football team and will be for the rest of the year, barring injury. There is zero question of that. You agree with me, Spencer?
As much as I hate to say it, yes, because I'm not a fan of what Carr's done, but I admit that he is better than Jameis. So, yes, he will be the Saints quarterback if healthy.
I'm with Jeff, though. Jeff is saying, I don't know what's wrong with my thing today. He hopes Jayden Daniels for the Saints. I'm with you, Jeff. Jeff, I'm totally with you. I think Jayden Daniels will be a fantastic quarterback in the NFL. I would love to see but the Saints, they don't have that. They don't draft quarterbacks. I said this on Datitude this morning. I don't know if I know you listened to part of the show this morning. Did you get this far when I tell you the last quarterback drafted by the Saints to play multiple games in a season? So Ian Book doesn't count because he only started one game. Last Saints quarterback they drafted to play multiple games in a season. Do you know who it is?
Oh man, that was I think I remember I had it all in the back, and I heard I don't remember. It was someone from way back in the day, though.
Well, it's not way back for me. It's way back for you.
Don't tell me Archie Manning.
No, it's not that far.
Okay, I was about to say.
CJ is correct. It is Dan. That's not how you spell it, but that you have got it correct. Dan, maybe you listened to Data 2 this morning. It's Danny Werfel. He started 4 games in 1998. He started 2 games. You're close. You're getting closer. It is, and he started
Wonderful.
2 games in 1997. So for you, Spencer, that is way back in the day.
Yeah, no, I was an infant. That's the year I was born.
1998 or 97?
98.
Wow, so
January of 98. So I
wow,
was a
there you
little
go.
one.
Wow, that's all we need to know right there. And CJ did not listen to Data 2. Well, you win the prize. If we had a prize today, you would have won the prize. That is the correct answer. Before that, it is Archie Manning. So it just goes to show you, it is not in the Saints' MO at all to draft a quarterback. They just don't do it. I don't know why they don't do
that though.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know why it's like that, but it is like that. So.
But it is what they're gonna do. They're gonna wait till Arch Manning enters the draft and then draft him for Manning back to New Orleans.
I wish I had this picture, but I was actually this is back in my days as the front page designer for the Times-Picayune, and I actually designed this front page with Danny Werfel's helmet on backwards. It was, if you could picture this, his face mask was in the back of his head. The back of his helmet was in the front of his head. His helmet got completely spun around against the Panthers. They lost a game they should have won. Just, let's say some things don't change. And the headline in this big a type on a newspaper was, H-U-H, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark. I did that page. I remember it like it was yesterday. So it wasn't that far back along the time. Yeah. That's kind of what I feel like when I'm watching the Saints these days. All right. Real quickly, Spence, they're playing Georgia State this week. 31-point favorite. Get a little break from the SEC. I don't know much about Georgia State, but I would imagine.
Not good.
Yeah,
they're not good.
They must score a lot of points, though, because the over-under is 71.5.
Yeah, they're like one of these teams. I think they're like a spread team. They throw a lot. They can score, but they're horrible on defense. Past 3 weeks, I'm looking at the trends for the little LSU early line piece that I do each week. And yeah, Georgia State, past 3 weeks against Sunbelt teams, giving up 40-plus points. So just imagine what Jayden's going to do to that horrible defense.
So maybe he'll get 701 again. We'll have to see how that works. But again, we'll talk about this some more going forward. I think it's a shame, but I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. He definitely should. Whether he does or not, that's another story. All right, we got a couple more brief topics before we go off the air today. Real quickly, Spence, 24-22 Tulane. This one, here's the thing that was different about this Tulane win. We've been talking about cat and mouse, and last week Tulane won, I think, what was the score? 13-10 over ECU, but they had dominated the stats. This time, not only did they barely win the game, but they lost the stats. They gave up 122 yards to a Tulsa team that can't run the ball. I watched part of it. This one kid kept running all over Tulane. I didn't know what was going on. He's getting like 8-10 yards a carry. And they passed for 355 yards, which is only 2 yards fewer than Tulane had total. What is going on with the Green Wave?
I said it last week, and I'll say it again. This Tulane team is simply not as good as last year's. And yeah, they're squeaking out these wins, but it's because the AAC is worse this year. A lot of good teams from last year defected to the Big 12. Like, if Tulane would have to play UCF again, I bet they'd get their butts whooped. I mean, this Tulane team is just that they're not impressing me at all. And I don't think there's any way they win both UTSA and SMU because they make the championship game. Well, if they lose the UTSA, I don't even think they'll make the championship game. But if they beat UTSA, then I don't have any confidence that they'll beat SMU. SMU's been rolling lately. They've been impressive in AAC play, and Tulane just simply hasn't.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I don't know that I agree with that. I'm not ready to write them off yet, and they're 9-1. It sure beats a lot of other Tulane years that we've seen. But they are the favorites right now well, I said they're the favorites. Maybe that's not the right word. They are ahead in the race for that the non-Power 5 team to go to the New Year's Six Bowl again. If they were to go to the New Year's Six Bowl, I believe it would be most likely either the Fiesta or the Orange, from what I understand. So Tulane is not only still in the running, but if they went out against Florida Atlantic, UTSA, as Spencer said, and then SMU in the AAC championship game, Tulane will go to a New Year's Six game again, 2 years in a row. That's never happened before. And it could be the best Tulane run, honestly, since way back when in the 30s, when they were going to major bowl games on a regular basis. But they got to fix something, and they got to fix something soon. I'm starting to lean towards Spencer's side. All right, What's going on with the Pelicans? This team, I tell you, 4-6 now, 10th in the Western Division, Spencer. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time again going forward as we move forward in this show and in the calendar. We'll talk more about the Pelicans, but just 2 weeks ago, I was looking at the headline and they were 2-0. There was a lot of promise. They're now 2-6 since that 2-0 start. And if you look at these next 6 games, they played against the Mavericks, lost big against the Mavericks last night. But this 6-game homestand, Mavericks, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Kings. I mean, really, who put that together?
Man, the schedule makers did them no favors with that because, that's all tough teams there, playoff-worthy teams. And, man, I tried to be a little more optimistic about the Pels heading in, thinking that Zion would really be on a mission, statement season, all that. But he's looked flat, man.
He really has.
And it's like now that CJ McCollum's out, there's just no life in this team. I mean, he's the leader of that team. He's the heart and soul of the Pels. I mean, Brandon Ingram, the sad thing is that Brandon Ingram and Zion both healthy right now, but the fact is they've actually been worse with them in the lineup. They broke down the numbers. It was all over Twitter. They were saying, I think it was point differential. They've actually been getting beat with them in the lineup, and then with them out of the lineup, I believe their point differential was about even, maybe even in the plus. So it's just that's ridiculous. You've got these supposed star players, and they're not coming through. It's just, and I agree with you being, Zion just doesn't want to be here. I hope he didn't do enough, like stay healthy enough to where they can trade him and get a big trade package, because I am sick.
I just don't think
Zion.
you get a lot of big trade package these days for almost anybody. And it's just starting to remind me of AD all over again. I don't know what it is. I don't know that this team's ever going to be really viable here because players don't want to stay here long enough. You got to be really good in that window when the players are working their keisters off to get traded to a team they want to get traded to. That's the problem with the NBA. Nobody wants to play for a small market team in the NBA. It really is. I mean, the only reason why people want to play in Milwaukee, frankly, is because Milwaukee built themselves up to be what they are. And if you can get to that level, maybe you can stay there for a little while. But if you're not there, people don't want to go there. And that's what it is right now for the Pels. And you see these odds have changed a lot. If you look at the bottom right screen, the futures, they changed a whole bunch since the last time we put these on the screen a couple of weeks ago. They're now 60-1 to win the NBA title. They were 40-1 just a couple of weeks ago. To win the Southwest Division, they are plus 425. And now they don't have odds to make the playoffs. Otherwise, I would have put that in there at Caesars Sportsbook, the official odds partner of BetIKnow.com, by the way, to make the play-in game. So they're basically even money to make the play-in game. So that's where they are. 10th in the West right now. Long way to go. You're barely, 1/10 through the season, a little bit more than a 10th through the season. But, man, it's not started well. Again, a 2-6 run now for the Pelicans, and a really brutal, as you see on your screen, a really brutal schedule coming up. It doesn't get any easier. Jeff Haspel.
You're wrong. Jeff Mickey's no longer with the Pelicans. He's got back in his lane. He realized basketball wasn't his thing. But speaking of that, David Griffin, though, I mean, everyone thought he'd be a savior for the Pelicans, but the bottom line is his rosters have not lived up to expectations.
100%. Agree 100%. All right. Before we go off the air today, Spence, want to talk about Monday Night Football, and then I'm going to ask you your thoughts on Saints odds before we go off. Broncos and Bills tonight. The Bills are now 7.5-point favorites, kind of hovering at 7. It was 7.5, dropped back down to it dropped from 7.5 to 7, and now it's back at 7.5. So money kind of teetering just enough to make it go to 7.5. What do you like tonight, Broncos and Bills?
Yeah, I lean toward the Bills here. I think the Broncos could keep this fairly close for the most part, but I think this is one where Josh Allen gets back on track. Denver's defense isn't very good. I know they had the good showing against the Chiefs, but I think that was more of where they were just very locked in on stopping Mahomes and all that. I think Allen, he's so dynamic, and I think he'll find a way. I think the Bills win by about 10. So if I had to play this, I'd probably lay the points, maybe the over. I could see this being a fairly high-scoring game. I think Sean Payton will have a few answers, but not enough for them to take down the Bills in Buffalo.
You know, I'd really like to take Buffalo here, and I know that's the Mabelish kind of play. And the weather looks like it's nice, 50 degrees, perfect sunshine there. I just looked it up. I just can't though. I'm tired of taking the Bills and getting burned by it. I'll probably take the Broncos small. I have the Bills as part of a teaser that's still open. I actually can win this and finish even on the week in my best bets. If the Bills at least cover the 1.5 in the teaser, but I just don't have any confidence in them. I would take the Broncos here if I were forced to make a play. I think if it were 7, it'd probably be more of a stay away. If we're 6.5, I'd probably take the Bills. But at 7.5, I just can't. I can't do it. Josh Allen has been too inconsistent. The Broncos defense has played much better as of late. Russell Wilson has played much better as well as of late. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a tight game. I do think the Bills find a way to win, although it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me in the least if the Bills didn't win. Something's wrong with that team. They're having a Saints kind of season over there. They really are. Speaking of the Saints, if I were forced to, here's $20. You got to either put money on Saints at -20, or I think the Falcons were like plus 140 ish or something, or plus, no, maybe they were a little less than that, plus 120 ish. What you gonna do? Plus 120 on the Falcons or minus 120 on the Saints?
Oh, to win the South. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, because I mean they lost. They just lost to the Cardinals. And I was like, Kyler Murray was back. So with Kyler Murray, the Cardinals are a good amount better. So I'll take the plus odds with Atlanta.
I knew you would.
That. I said it before the season, and just as much as I hate to say it, because I mean I know Atlanta love. I admit they suck. I mean they're not a good football team. But with NFC South at this point, it's just who can suck the least.
I don't disagree with you, but I will say this. I said it before, and when it went to 175, I said you couldn't play it anymore. The Saints have been a value ever since it went to plus 200. Even money, it was still a value. Minus 120, it's still a value. If they play the rest of this season out 10 times, the Saints are going to win this division, in my opinion, 7. So I think that is still a value. I think the Falcons would win it twice and the Bucs would win it once. That's where we are right now. I think the Saints are going to still we could sit here and talk about how the Saints suck all day long, and we have actually, but there's still a value to win this division. They're still by far and I mean by far, they're by far the best team in this division. People can bitch all they want about Derek Carr, but imagine the spot that the Falcons are in right now. They've got, you want to talk about quarterback controversy, they got 2 really, really bad quarterbacks that they're wondering who's going to quarterback, whether it's going to be Heineke or Ritter. I wouldn't want either one of those if I were on a sinking ship. Yeah, and that was my only options. And Baker Mayfield sucks too.
If it wasn't for Baker Mayfield, I mean, statistically, he's been the best quarterback in the NFC South. I'm not saying he's good, but he's been the least sucky quarterback. He's been better than Derek Carr this year, as painful as that is to say, and he's making way less money.
If we switch to fantasy football, then maybe I would take Baker Mayfield in the rest of the year, but we're not playing fantasy football, and I don't want that bum leading my team. That's final thoughts, Spencer, before we go off the air. A little bit longer than I thought we would go, but it's been an interesting show. We had a lot of people watching throughout. I know people are pretty ticked off by the Saints. It doesn't have to be Saints related. Your final thought?
Yeah, definitely a packed show. And I guess my final thought would just be just stay calm, people. You know, I was negative about the Saints, negative about Tulane, negative about the Pelicans, but just be calm, people. Stay loyal to your local teams and just keep supporting them. Hope they can turn the ships around, because we all know how things go in sports. Things can be looking down there for a while, and then if just a few right decisions, they can get turned back around. So not time to completely panic yet, but they've got to get some things going in the right direction, or else it hadn't hit rock bottom yet, and they've still got a chance to correct it. But it's just, I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
My final thought is I think about this team is as pissed off as I was. The reason why I was so pissed off is because, you know, I was positive last week, which, you know, they call me Derry Downer for a reason, but I really liked what I had heard from this team. I liked what I had seen. I thought they were going in the right direction. So the fact that they turned back into that old team with that old offense and not knowing what to do and coming up with these really dumb plays and straying from what was working, that's what frustrated me. But in the end, this team is who I said they were, who I thought they were, who we all thought they were. It's going to be a roller coaster ride the rest of the season. It's been a roller coaster ride through 10 games. It's going to be a roller coaster ride through the last 8 games. And I do mean 8, the last 7 regular season games and that playoff game against Dallas when they get smoked. That's a whole different story. We can talk about that one later because they are going to get smoked if they play the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. But it is what it is. But it sure beats being a Giants fan, a Jets fan, a Panthers fan, a Patriots fan. There's a whole lot of teams. I would much rather be a Saints fan than ... And that includes any other team in this division. So you can take that for what it's worth. We'll have fun with it the rest of the way. We hope you join us. We'll see you again on Thursday afternoon and then next week. How appropriate that the Saints will be coming back on Turkey Week. Speaking of turkeys, we'll reveal our Turkey of the Week on Thursday. Until then, everyone have a great week. By the way, if you're enjoying Datitude, special programming note, it will be on the air on Wednesday this week. Uncle Big Nick doesn't even know this yet. But Wednesday for Uncle Big Nick and Larry Holder. No Friday show and no Monday show next week. We'll see you then. Everyone have a great week. Peace and love, everyone. Talk to you later.